With the Wall tool selected, the Preferences button on the toolbar will bring up the Wall Settings dialog. This is where all the many parameters of walls are controlled. The top of this dialog box will allow you to save any preferences you set in the below tabs as a wall style if you have an Architect or Landmark version of Vectorworks. Otherwise, you will not see this option. Definition tab will allow you to control the overall thickness of your wall, as well as control the pen, fill styles, and colors for the overall wall by clicking the Edit Attributes button. This tab also displays a preview of what your wall will look like in plan view, so that you do not need to keep making changes to the preferences and then closing the dialog box again to see them. However, below you will see an area labeled Components. If individual component thicknesses are defined as part of the wall definition, then the overall thickness is calculated to be the sum of the components. So while the overall thickness displays the current value, it is no longer modifiable. For example, here I have 3 components at 5 centimeters thick each, totaling 15 centimeters. If I change this component to 10, the total updates to 20, and if I change another one to 10, it updates to 25. By default, in an unstyled wall, there will be no component. To create new ones, simply click New. This will bring up the Wall Component Attributes dialog box. Here you can name the new component, as well as set what class you want it to reside in. This is useful if you wish to turn off certain components of the wall via the Classes menu. If you wish to have all the components in the wall simply appear and disappear when you turn the overall Walls class on and off, leave this option at Object Class. Below this, you can set how thick this particular component will be. As we mentioned before, these component widths will be added together to calculate your wall's overall thickness. To the right, you'll see Offset from Wall Top and Offset from Wall Bottom. In 2D, these options have no effect, but in 3D, they will control whether this particular component matches the regular wall's height or if it rises above or below as specified. You would use this option if your insulation component did not reach as high as the framing of the wall, for instance, or if you wanted the exterior facing, and therefore the exterior texture, of the wall to come down further to cover masonry work below it. The next 2 checkboxes control whether you want this component to follow any top or bottom wall peaks, allowing you to have a component that keeps the same height all the way through, but other components that rise and fall with your custom wall peaks. Below, Fill controls the fill that this particular component will have in a 2D top plan view. This will have no effect on its 3D appearance. Immediately below this is the Texture option, which is where you can control the 3D appearance of this object in a rendering mode. To the right of these 2 options, you can control the pen style of the right and left of this component individually, or you can set them to use class attributes, which will assign them to the class you chose above. Keep in mind that the left and right options here control the left and right pen styles of this particular component, not of the entire wall. The Insertion Options tab controls the wall options, as well as whether the component or single object textures are used, if you have RenderWorks. In the height area, you can manually enter the desired height of walls, in which case the top and bottom bound options will automatically set themselves to layer elevation. If you set the top and bottom bounds to specific layer or story, your wall heights will update accordingly if you make changes to these layers or stories in the Design Layer properties. Top and bottom offset will allow you to set a custom offset from those respective boundaries for this specific wall. Caps lets you control whether the drawn wall will automatically cap itself if not joined to another length of wall. You can select from None for no caps, Start for the beginning of the wall as you've drawn it, End for the last portion of the wall as you've drawn it, or both to cap both the start and ends of the wall. Class sets the default class for this wall object when created. If you wish to have this wall create itself in whatever class you currently have active, set it to Active Class. As shown in the Wall Tool video, you can set the control offset for the custom control line offset mode of the wall tool here. If you have RenderWorks, you'll see options for Use Component Textures or Use Object Textures. If you have assigned or plan to assign textures to each of your components individually, you should set this to Use Component Texture. If you want to manually control the textures for each face of the wall, left, right, top, etc., then set this to Use Object Textures, and you can set each part to your desired texture. This can also be modified later per wall in the Render tab of the Object Info palette. The third tab in the Wall Preferences is labeled Data. This is available in Architect and Landmark versions of Vectorworks. This will be explained in greater detail in another video. The last item in the Wall Tools toolbar appears if you have Architect or Landmark versions of Vectorworks. It allows you to select which wall style you'd like to use. By default, there will be many predefined styles listed, with any custom ones you've created in this document listed first. The numerous options in Wall Preferences allow you to easily control the walls in your document to your exact specifications.